Welcome to episode 220 of the Scarlet Faithful podcast. I'm Aaron Brightman. It's Tuesday, November 21st. Turkey Day is 2 days away, and wanted to finally take some time to discuss the survey that came out last week from Rutgers Athletic Director Pat Hobbs in reference to renovations for Jersey Mike's Arena, aka the Rack, and a lot of ground to cover. So I wanted to do it methodically and really try to hit all angles because it's an emotional thing for a lot of fans, including me. I think a necessary thing in certain regards, but also a concern for other reasons. So just a little background. I mean, I've been going to games at the Rack since the 80s. The place is a home away from home for me. You walk in, the smells, the sounds, the hard floors, the coldness a little bit, the weird sight lines, all of it. It just feels natural. It feels like a place I've been going to for 40 years. And it is. And I've been fortunate enough to go at times when there's aren't games to see the team practice for media days. If you watched my interviews from October at media day on my YouTube, there is a really loud, weird noise that's just buzzing throughout. And, it was annoying, but at the same time, it was kind of like, all right, this is the Rack. It doesn't have to be the cleanest, softest place in the world for it to still feel like home, because you're not going there for comfort from a physical sense. You're going there to be around other fans and to celebrate a team that we love. So first off, I just want to commend Athletic Director Pat Hobbs for sending the survey. Not many times do fans get asked for input in terms of potential renovations. So I think that is a great sign. And it also, and he said in an interview with NJ.com, Brian Fonseca, that they're using this survey to ultimately determine what the scope of the work will be, how it would prioritize the work. Ultimately, he said the goal was to be ready for the 2025-2026 season. They don't want to do it during the season where the team will have to play away. So that's a good thing. But, the survey, I think it's clear, right? The consensus seems to be more bathrooms. The open concourse idea, I like. The idea that they'd have to open or expand the outside for a walkway. It would be exterior lobby that they probably have to do if they open up the concourse. I think that's a really cool idea. Last year, I believe it was last couple of years, they've had that kind of tent in front of the Rack where they've had a pregame party, tailgate party. I mean, if they could incorporate that with the exterior lobby and have a more permanent structure and have that for, before concerts, before games, I mean, that would be a really cool idea. The club and the suite seats, that's where I think it's a concern. Hobbs was very clear on they don't want to change the atmosphere. I find that a very hard line to walk if you're going to potentially add suites and club seats and a club area where you kind of stand in a loungy area. That's going to be hard to not change the environment and the atmosphere. And that's my biggest point here, is that, yes, there's some necessary physical upgrades, but at the same time, you can't change the fans. And if you make it too comfortable, the edge that the fans generate in that building, that building elicits out of us, that pulls out of us, that is going to mess with the atmosphere. If you're sitting in your padded seat, right, and not on the edge of some hard plastic with the concrete underneath you and people yelling in your ear, I mean, you don't want to be too comfortable at a game like this. I've been to pro games. I've been, as a kid, I went to the Dean Dome. There's a reason why they call the North Carolina home crowd the wine and cheese crowd, because they've had suites and boxes and padded seats. They've had padded seats in the Dean Dome for 30 plus years. Look at Cameron Indoor Arena for Duke, Purdue Mackey Arena. There's not club seats. There's not suite seats. Those are two of the hardest, arguably the two hardest places to play in the country. Obviously, biasly, I think the rack is up there. I understand you have to generate revenue. It's a hard task. And creating suites, creating club seats, getting thousands of dollars for them. I mean, the survey asked if you're willing to pay $20,000 for it, $10,000. I guess my bigger question is, where are these fans coming from? And if the idea is that all the regular seats, first of all, you'd be taking away from the seats that are already there, right? That help create that atmosphere. But then, if you upgrade pricing across the board, there is the risk of pricing out real fans. And is there enough of a market for fans that can afford higher price tickets that aren't already going? Does that really exist? I don't know. Again, I totally respect and understand that they have to generate revenue. I'm sure they're doing their due diligence. I think another route in terms of a survey is to look at what other venues are doing. It talked about upgraded concessions. So that's a great idea. Can you generate revenue by getting upgraded brands to come in and pay almost like a fee to just be there? I don't know. I work in the food business. I know that happens in some places. I don't know if that's possible there. Advertising, right? Increasing ad placements, driving revenue that way. That, ads are just a necessary part of any experience now. If we have to sacrifice something in the rack from a fan perspective, put ads everywhere. I don't care. Put them on the floor, Don't take out seats and replace them with executive level club. I mean, if you could fit it within the integrity of the structure, that's not replacing real fan seats. And I say real fan and those that have been going there forever and paying money. I just would hate to see longtime fans priced out of being able to go to the rack, whether their seat was changed or not, just because it needs to go up to pay for all this stuff. I hope that they can be as creative as possible in increasing revenue without taking away regular seats, without increasing prices too much, and improving the overall experience. The concessions, the bathrooms, that would improve things. Concessions to drive revenue. I love that, like I said, the lobby idea. If you have more sponsored games, more sponsored events prior to games, I think the marketing piece is a big part of this. It can't just be, the easy fix is to take out seats and put in more expensive ones. But this isn't a pro venue, and I think when you look at renovations, look at Fenway Park versus Yankee Stadium, right? I have been to the old Yankee Stadium. I've been to Fenway Park many times. I lived in Boston, and I miss the old Yankee Stadium. And they were unable to recreate that in the new Yankee Stadium. And what happens now? That home field advantage is gone. You watch a Yankee game on TV and all those luxury seats with the pads and, the corporate rights and the seating licenses and all, they're empty half the time. It even takes away from the environment watching through the television. Fenway, they didn't redo Fenway. They've upgraded spots. They haven't taken out any of those seats. They haven't padded much. It's very similar to what it was, but they've made some, concessions have been upgraded a lot. Some of the bathrooms were upgraded, similarly to what I think Rutgers wants to do. And I think maybe studying the Fenway model would be a great idea if they haven't already, which they probably have. But that to me is channeling where this could go. Go the Fenway route. Look at what they did there. Keeping the integrity of the experience. That's still a real home field advantage compared to what the new Yankee Stadium is now. And, they're never going to gut the rack. And that's a a great thing. And I think that there's many fans that have an emotional tie to that building. And it's almost like if you make it too nice, right? It's going to feel weird. And I know they want to make it nice. And some of the renderings look beautiful. But saying it's not going to take away from the atmosphere and it actually not taking away from the atmosphere are two different things, and it's a hard needle to thread. And don't price out the regular fans, and don't make the regular fans soft. You want that edge, and that's not the most comfortable seat. That's your knees getting a little tight. People walking by, you got to squeeze in. I mean, it's all part of the experience. Packing the rack and having an edge to the environment and a buzz to the environment, part of that is the way the layout is now. And by the way, it wasn't on the survey, but maybe they can create a pavilion or an area for football recruits out of the student section. Beef up that student section, move the recruits elsewhere. That's a huge part of it too. I don't think they're going to move students. I think, that section they're in behind the basket, that makes sense. But upgrade that a little bit. They don't need padded seats. Keep the benches, whatever, but just maybe fill it in a little bit. And creating a designated area for recruits would be awesome for football. Because you lose those student seats during games, and it is a factor. I think anything you can do to maximize the home court advantage while also increasing revenue. Can you connect those dots, right? And in addition, things like ads and concessions. But it's, I think, the most challenging project that Pat Hobbs has yet in terms of the sensitivity to it. It's going to be, the timeline. If they're going to do it in the off seasons, that's going to be difficult. But I think there's a lot of potential there, and I commend him for how he's approaching it so far and the goals that are there in terms of making it. But this is, it's funny. Obviously, the Jersey is a huge place, right? And I don't even always identify with everything that's Jersey, but the Jersey vibe in the rack, it's so unique, and it's one of those places in Jersey that just has a vibe that you can't recreate anywhere, and you can't lose it. You can't lose it, because once you lose it, you never get it back. And the Prudential Center's nice, for Seton Hall, and it's a cool venue, and I think it was very well done. And you know what? It's a professional arena, and this doesn't need to be that. And Rutgers has always approached it the right way and never trying to, people have pitched the idea of going to downtown New Brunswick. That would be a terrible idea. But making the outside, in terms of if there are more spots to do more activities, like those pre-gaming things, having concerts there would be a really cool idea. And I get that suites and club seats would be ideal for that. I don't know. There's a lot of new technology. There's a lot of smart architects out there. Maybe there's something they could do temporarily in the off season, that they almost like can take seats out and create something in the off season or for during concerts that is more loungy. I don't know. There's a lot of ideas and technology and innovation out there that maybe you can do something that you get a little bit of best of both worlds, but you still get that regular seat, screaming fan, slightly uncomfortable. They added AC recently. Maybe they get rid of that buzzing sound. The scoreboard was on fire last year. I mean, that's not to make fun of it. That's the rack. You never know what's going to happen. And some of the uncomfortableness of it is what makes it so awesome. And as a Rutgers fan, so comfortable, and for the team to play there in that environment. So we'll see what happens. But wanted to address it, and we'll follow this story as it develops. And they're gonna basically get the results in the spring and formulate a plan. I think They said summertime was the goal to kind of, establish what the steps, the scopes are going to be. And yes, they have to drive revenue. So I think them pitching these ideas are a good thing. But I'd be very interested to see the results and how many people are going to be willing to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, even if they are able to create these spots. And I think that it's college basketball. It's not pro. And that's part of why I don't even like to go to NBA games, because the feeling is so different. It's sterile. It's just hollow. And this is not a hollow experience. This is a soul pulling place. When you leave the rack after a close, you're spent, right? You just feel that you opened up and the place kind of took out what you had to offer. And that's what that place brings out of you. And it's truly special. And I have to give him the benefit of the doubt. Pat Hobbs has done a tremendous job with all the facility work so far at Rutgers, and I have faith he's going to do it again here. Thanks for listening and watching the Scarlet Faithful podcast once again.